committee hearing started. First, we have, I believe y'all have a packet of the Senate nomination forms. Do we have some that are on Zoom? Who's on Zoom? All right, I believe our first nominee is joining us via Zoom. Brad, are you there?
I'm here. How are y'all doing?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. How are y'all?
Can you hear me, Brad?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Carlos.
Yeah.
Hey, Brad, if you can hear me, make sure you're unmuted.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Let's try this. Can you hear me that way?
Yeah.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Hi, this is Amy Robertson.
Hey, Amy, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good deal. I'm not sure if they can hear.
Now, I got you now, Brad. Thank you. Let me get the committee lined up. Our first nominee is Senate nominee number 65, Mr. Brad Wood from Hattiesburg, Mississippi for the Business Finance Corporation. This is for a term effective May 4th, 2022, ending March 31st, 2028. Committee has a packet in front of them. Mr. Wood, if you would please just kind of introduce yourself to the committee and give us your background.
My name's Brad Wood from Hattiesburg, Mississippi. I'm a certified and a partner at Mississippi. I've got married to my wife with 2 boys, 7.
Okay. It's frozen. All right, we're going to put Mr. Wood's nomination on the table, subject call, as soon as we can get the technical difficulties worked out.
Motion to lay this on the table, subject to call.
All right, you've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, all opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Wood, we'll come back to you in just a few minutes. Next nominee is Amy Robertson from Gulfport, Mississippi for Mississippi Home Corps as a representative of the 2nd Supreme Court District, a 6-year term effective June 27th, 2022, ending April 23rd, 2028. Is Ms. Robertson here?
Yeah.
All right, there you are. Okay, great. If you would please introduce yourself to the committee.
Hi, I'm Amy Robertson. I live in Gulfport, Mississippi, and I have had the pleasure of serving on the Home Corps board for almost 4 years now.
Okay. Committee members have a packet in front of you of the peer report. One thing peer noted, Ms. Robertson, is you need to file a statement of economic interest with the Ethics Commission.
Yes, it was filed last week.
Okay, it was filed. Great. Well, her appointment complies with applicable law, and there was no derogatory information regarding Ms. Robertson. Are there any questions from the committee for Ms. Robertson? Senator McMahon for a question.
Ms. Robertson, it's my understanding you're a reappointment to the Mississippi Home Corporation,
That's correct.
and you've served in that capacity for how many years?
Almost 4.
So the Mississippi Home Corporation, one of the things that y'all do is you put packets together for low-income housing and what you may call affordable housing. Is that accurate?
Among other things, yes.
Okay. Well, it's my understanding that Lee County, Mississippi has been receiving a lot of these projects. As a matter of fact, I think last year we had 11 projects that were qualified that were placed in Lee County. Did you vote for all of those projects?
Yes,
Okay. You know that the political leadership of that area, the economic teams don't want those projects in Lee County. Are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of that.
Were you there when I came and addressed the home board and asked you guys to reconsider your positions?
I'm sorry. Yes, I just realized where Lee is this Tupelo?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. As far as I can remember, I don't believe that was an issue with the Home Corps. It was an issue with the developer. Is that correct?
The issue is that these low-income housing projects continue to be planted in Lee County, Mississippi. And it's deteriorating some of the property owners' values in some of the areas. And I want to know, can you help explain why we continue to get these projects in Lee County, 11 projects in 1 year, when some counties don't have any of these type projects?
Well, we have to make housing affordable for all Mississippians. And unfortunately, they do have to live somewhere.
Yes, ma'am. But the issue is the local municipalities no longer have any veto over these projects. It used to be that they had veto over them if they didn't want them. And the issue is, I'm hearing from the people that I represent, is that they don't want these low-income housing, these low-income housing projects in these areas, in Lee County. What county do you live in?
Harrison.
How many low-income housing projects went into Harrison County last year?
We have a good number of them.
You know what that number is?
I don't off the top of my head.
Were you there when I came and addressed the committee and asked you guys to reconsider some of the projects that were going into Lee County that were, not favored?
I was there the day that I believe you came with a gentleman and his sister.
I came with several constituents that I represent.
Mhm.
And that case, there's been litigation on that case.
Well, wasn't there a sign up for a while at that property that allowed people to state their disagreement with it for a certain period of time?
I do believe they met the requirements of the law that says you have to have a sign on that property and give due notice.
All we can do is meet the law that's currently there. And if the developer met that, then they met that.
I'm just troubled that these projects are continuing to go into areas where
And I know it is.
elected officials don't want these projects.
Sure. And I understand it's the whole, not in my backyard. I get that. But people have to live somewhere.
Okay. But so you're okay with government driving down? So you're okay with an agency placing these low-income housing projects in areas that's driving down the property value of people that have invested?
I'm okay with the
hard-earned
agency
money.
doing what it is meant to do, which is helping developers create homes for Mississippians.
Well, I'm just really troubled. I'm really troubled by what you guys do, and that the local governing authorities and municipalities don't have any say. And to my colleagues here, I want you to understand, the Board of Aldermen or your city councils don't have any veto of these projects. So I want to be sure everybody here understands
Well,
what
so wouldn't that go through your local planning and development?
they do go through the local planning and development.
So if
They
it meets
do.
that criteria,
Yeah.
that's not criteria that we set.
I understand that. And a lot of those regulations are having to be tightened up now because the properties are being developed for purposes they were never meant to be developed for. But
Sounds like it have a chance to go through the local group then.
yeah, I would like to invite the Home Corporation Board to come to the 6th District and let's go through some of these projects. And I'd like you to see what's taking place in some of these neighborhoods.
Sure.
Senator England for a question?
Yeah, not a question. I'd just like to speak on Ms. Robertson's behalf at the proper time.
Okay. Are there any other questions of the nominee? All right, seeing none. Senator Bryan, you're recognized for a question.
I have an off-the-wall question, which I'll address to you, but I think it's more along the lines of a request to the members of the Home Corporation. I have no idea if you have any authority to do this or not, but there are a number of projects for low-income housing which seek and have been able to obtain lower tax assessments based on the argument that because there's some restriction on what we can rent for, we shouldn't pay the property taxes that an identical complex that doesn't have subsidized rent would pay. I have an idea in the back of my head that the projects are not so borderline that if the normal ad valorem taxes had to be paid, that it would reduce the number of projects. I just wonder if y'all have the ability, or if you would look into it and see if as a qualification for getting the funding that you have available, that the entity getting the funding would agree to pay taxes based on the fair market value of the property rather than on some calculation which takes into account subsidized rent.
Ms. Robertson.
I shot an arrow into the air.
And I'm sorry, it cut out for a second there. Could you ask the question again?
Yes. I'm trying to think of a shorter version of the question. I believe it to be the case that many of the projects you fund get a lower ad valorem assessment than an identical project because there's some restriction on the rent that can be charged. And I was wondering if you and other members of the board would at least consider and see if you have authority to require, as a condition of getting approval by the board, an agreement by the grantee that the individual will not seek that lower ad valorem tax structure, but will pay ad valorem taxes just as an identical property which was not subject to rent restrictions would pay.
Okay. I believe they're taxed on the cash flow.
Tax on cash flow.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said.
So I believe they're taxed on cash flow.
Taxed on cash.
Yes, yes, I think that's where we are now.
Okay. Is that so it says, so I believe that state law won't allow the assessors to tax the subsidy.
Yes, they've successfully gotten the state law to read the way they want the state law to read. Not an unusual development in this chamber. But my question is, do you have the authority to, as a condition of getting the grant, provide that the beneficiary would not seek that lower ad valorem assessment, but would help the local governments, with things like roads and police, schools, that sort of thing?
So the Home Corporation doesn't have that authority.
All right. Thank you, Senator Bryan. Seeing no further questions, recognize Senator England to, you have a question or a? Okay, I'll recognize you. Senator England, you're recognized to speak on the nominee.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to let the members of this body know that Ms. Robertson and I went to both Mississippi State and Ole Miss Law School together. We've worked in the same buildings before, and I think that she is a person of impeccable character. I know these nomination meetings sometimes turn into hearings on the board that these folks are being nominated for, and I'm sure that if we ever wanted Ms. Robertson up here, she's the type of person that would come up and answer any questions that we had, because that's the type of person she is. And I see her at so many, she's obviously busy with the Memorial Foundation. She's done a lot with Hancock Whitney Bank, which is where I saw her after we both finished law school, but she's also involved in so many different charities on the coast that we run into each other at a lot of philanthropy events. So I think the governor has made a great nomination here with Ms. Robertson. She does have my full support here today, and I would have a motion at the proper time.
Thank you, Senator England. Senator Horn. speak
Thank
on the-
you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I, along with Senator Michelle and Senator Blackman, serve on the Legislative Oversight Committee for the Mississippi Home Corporation, and know Ms. Robertson to be a very fine professional. She attends the meetings very well. She has a lot of input in the operations of the board. To Senator England's comments, when a person is up for nomination for a board, oftentimes whatever is going on with that board comes into some of the interrogation of the nominee. But just in defense of the Mississippi Home Corporation, not that they need to be defended, but the Home Corporation is not your father's low-income housing agency anymore. The projects that are entered into and funded by the Mississippi Home Corporation are done by consummate professionals. They are folks who are in the business of making money, and the margins are very, very thin. They have to build these houses and these multifamily units to market rate standards. They have syndicators that require that, who buy these low-income housing tax credits, who require that there be a certain level of professionalism, a certain standard of the houses. I don't know that affordable housing, which is the term that's more appropriately used today, does any sort of has any sort of adverse impact on property values the way that they once might have. I think it's a myth now that people, there was certainly some issues previously, but in 2023, I don't think that that's really the case in most of the instances, because this affordable housing initiative is very, very much needed. Housing is one of the biggest shortages that we have in Mississippi as well as the rest of the country. And we're providing facilities for seniors to have decent affordable housing, for folks with special needs. There may be veterans that are involved that need support and help with this. And all it does, the facilities themselves, if you didn't know that they were affordable, you wouldn't know that they were affordable based on the quality of the craftsmanship and the workmanship that's put into them, that Home Corp requires of developers nowadays. So I want to speak on behalf of Ms. Ms. Robertson, but also Mr. Nelson and Mr. Townsend, who are here, that they're serving on a great organization that is doing great things in Mississippi. And they're serving very admirably. So I won't speak on the other nominees, Mr. Chairman, but I hope that my comments will be applied to each of the nominees coming before us who are up for Home Corp.
All right, thank you, Senator. Anyone else want to speak? Okay, you recognized for a question.
Ms. Robertson, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want to make sure of two things before we vote. You mentioned that you did file a statement of economic interest last week.
Yes.
And is there anything on that which would give this, this committee any kind of pause or question, anything at all?
No, nothing.
Okay. And secondly, I noticed that there is no oath on record with the Secretary of State's office required by statute. Has that been filed?
Yes, I filed two things. So I believe I'm fully compliant.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much.
No other questions? Before we take a motion, I ask the standard question. Is there anything that's not listed on the peer report that would embarrass the Senate or the nominating entity on your appointment?
No.
Thank you. For motion, Senator Johnson. All right, the motion is we do advise the consent on nominee 71, Ms. Amy Robertson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Is Mr. Wood able to hear us?
Hey, I can hear you guys. Can y'all hear me now?
Yes. All right, we're going to bring up Senate nominee number 65, Mr. Wood. Mr. Wood, if you would, please go over your introduction again to the committee, please.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for having me. My name's Brad Wood. I'm a CPA in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. I'm a partner at TMH PLLC, which is a certified public firm located in Hattiesburg. I'm married to my wife, Jordan, two boys, 9 and 7.
Committee members have a peer report in front of you for your review. Mr. Wood, there's also noted under your file that you've not filed a statement of economic interest with the Ethics Commission. Have you done that?
I have filed one, but it hasn't been recently. I wasn't aware I needed to do that, but certainly can if I need to file another one.
If you could do that in the next day or two before we take you up on the floor, that'd be great.
Okay.
The last one you filed, I think, is 2019, so we need to get an updated one. Peer reported no derogatory information in your record. Are there any questions of the nominee? Seeing none. I'll ask you before we take a motion, is there anything that's not reported in this peer report that will embarrass the governor or the Senate, confirming your confirmation?
No, sir.
All right. Motion? All right, the motion is we do advise and consent on Senate nominee number 65, Mr. Brad Wood. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Next is Mr. Hugh Townsend, Senate nominee number 63. Mr. Townsend, if you don't mind coming up here. Thank you, Mr. Townsend, for being here. If you would, please introduce yourself to the committee.
Yes, my name is Hugh Townsend from Belzona, Mississippi. I'm a CEO of Guaranty Bank and Trust Company.
Okay. You're nominated for a spot on Mississippi Home Corporation, representing the 1st Supreme Court District. Your appointment does comply with law. There is no oath on record and no statement of economic interest. Have you filed those?
I'm not sure. I think we're checking right now. I will.
Okay. If you will do so before we take you up on the floor, I'd appreciate it. And send our committee assistant, Becky, a notification, please, once that's done. Peer staff located no derogatory information in the background. Are there any questions of the nominee from the committee? Senator McMahon for question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Townsend, I understand you're being reappointed to the Mississippi Home Corporation.
That's correct.
You heard my comments earlier about Lee County, and I believe that you guys are excessively approving projects in one of the few counties in this state that continues to grow and is an economic bright light in this state. Can you explain to me why we continue to get these projects when against the will of these governing municipalities, the governing boards of the municipalities?
Well, the projects are scored on a point system, and obviously they're scoring the highest. I would think that if the zoning was changed at the municipal level, that this wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out how Lee County is getting a lot of these projects when many counties in the state are not getting any, and we're seem to be inundated with them.
And I can't answer why more are going to leave than, or if they even are.
You know, I appreciate y'all's service on these boards. You know, I appreciate the service of Ms. Robertson. I'm sure y'all are wonderful and fine people. But you can understand the position that I'm in when the constituents I represent are telling me, you know, Chad, that this board down in Jackson keeps putting these low-income housing projects in our area. They keep approving them. You understand, I mean,
Right.
you understand the position I'm in.
But we aren't putting them in, the developers are, and they're scored based on criteria, you know,
Well, I mean, I didn't vote against Ms. Robertson. I'm not going to vote against you because I know you're qualified for the positions. I just want you to have full visibility that I believe I understand what's taking place. And I'm just asking you to please give careful consideration before you guys continue to put multiple projects a year in an area that is as I shared, it is really a bright light in this state. A lot of economic activity. And
understood.
so you know, you were there the day I came and addressed the board.
I was not there, the day I was by teleconference.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Townsend.
Senator Horn, you're recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Townsend, wouldn't you say that one of the missions of the Mississippi Home Corporation is to address a scarcity of workforce housing?
Yes, sir.
And wouldn't you agree that in places where there is high economic growth and activity, there is a serious need for workforce housing?
Yes, I would.
Thank you, sir.
Senator Bryan for a question.
I can continue to be concerned about the ad valorem tax situation. And I heard you mention a point system. I assume that an individual who's seeking to be scored could agree to make a payment in lieu of taxes to the local taxing authorities, assuming there is this special provision for low ad valorem taxes for the project. I wondered if you would give consideration to giving additional points in the application process for an applicant who would agree to make payments in lieu of taxes to the local taxing authorities.
I'm not really sure how that point system works. I do know that you know, in 2005, there was a state law passed that you cannot tax on the credit side of the transaction.
Well, I understand that, but I don't think it's illegal for someone to agree to make a payment in lieu of taxes. The other question that I wish you and others would look into is this. There are a number of existing dwellings all over the state, single-family homes, which could, or smaller developments that could be eligible, but I'm told that basically it's a practical matter, very difficult for anything to really be approved other than a large complex by a developer who knows all the ropes. And it would be beneficial, I think, for a number of ways if there were some way for some benefits to flow to smaller or complexes and existing structures.
Yes, sir, I agree.
Senator Chasnoff for a question.
I'd just like to comment that I represent 5 counties in District 14, Grenada, Montgomery, Atala, Carroll, LaFleur. I would welcome some affordable housing. We've got a number of industries coming, particularly in Grenada County. There's a big one that's being developed right now. So if y'all are looking for a place to put some affordable housing, please consider District 14. We could use it.
I feel pretty confident there's some coming your way.
Thank you.
Senator Thomas for a question. Okay. Are there any other, Senator McMahon for a question?
Yes. I understand. Mr. Townsend, one other question.
Yes, sir.
You keep several people here have talked about affordable housing. in your mind, what is the right price for affordable housing?
I, you know, I don't know how to answer that based on the income, but, you know, the average American, $125,000, $150,000. I mean, you know, which prices don't allow that right now, but I don't know if I can accurately answer that.
U.S. News ranks Mississippi number 10 in the nation for affordable housing. So, I mean, I'm just frustrated. I'm
Yeah, and
frustrated.
that's relative based on incomes too. We're
This
you know, the
is
lowest- one of the lowest in the country.
This is a ranking of real estate values. But thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I appreciate the committee allowing me to speak.
Senator Barnett for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to co-author the response by Senator Chazanah.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Understood.
All right, seeing no further questions or comments, Senator Thomas, let me ask one question. Is there anything not listed in the report that would embarrass the governor or the Senate confirming your appointment if it came out?
No.
Thank you. Senator Thomas for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to motion that, well, first of all, I've known Mr. Townsend for over 40 years. He's done a lot of outstanding things for our district, and also he works hard on Mississippi Home Corps. He's done an excellent job. So I'd like to move that we advise and consent.
All right, you've heard the motion. Motion is we advise and consent on Senate nomination number 63. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Next on the agenda is Senate nomination number 70. Mr. Robert Reed Nelson, Madison, Mississippi, Mississippi Home Corporation, remainder of a 6-year term effective June 28th, 2022, ending April 23rd, 2026, representing the First Supreme Court District.
Good
Mr.
afternoon.
Nelson, please introduce yourself to the committee.
Reed Nelson from Madison County, Mississippi. Glad to be here today and I'm fulfilling a 4-year of a 6-year term.
All right. You've, there's a peer packet in front of everyone. Have you filed a oath on record for the Secretary of State's office yet?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you. All right. You have a packet in front of you. This is for, and you previously served on the Business Finance Corp.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. Are there any questions from the committee? All right. Or motion at the proper time. All right, seeing no further, I'll ask you the same as I ask everybody else. Is there anything in this report that is not listed that would embarrass the governor or Senate upon your confirmation?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
All right. For the record, Mr. Nelson and I are fraternity brothers, so I'm not going to ask for any
Maybe we should
comments?
ask you that question, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody would like to ask me?
We're gonna keep on.
Right, after that, Senator Horn. Thank you.
You have a question? All right, Senator McMahon, you have a question. Go ahead.
Yes, sir, Senator McMahon.
Mr. Nelson, thank you. You've heard my comments already.
I did, yes,
I'm
sir.
just asking for a commitment that you're going to give careful consideration to any additional projects in Lee County.
You know, yes, sir, I will. And, you know, me being from Lee County, as you are, I can understand that. The challenge that I have is I'm still trying to find the coffee pot. I've only been here a couple of months. But the things I will note to you and Senator Bryan, I think, and I'll check on this, the city of Tupelo and their zoning laws, I think have a lot to do with that. I'll check on it. And then on the ad valorem taxes, I think that's a state thing, not a home corporation thing.
Yeah.
So I'll check on that and I will get back with you because I know that's very
Yeah.
important to you.
Yeah, I know it's zoning and those have been updated.
Okay. Thank you. Senator Bryan, your question?
Well, I know what the state law is and I know why the state law is that way. It's the same reason all the laws about AT&T are written the way AT&T wants them written, except one brief shining moment a couple of years ago. But the impact of the lack of ad valorem on local taxing districts is still there. And I was just hoping that the Home Corporation might consider undoing some of the damage the legislature had done with that law.
we've got a really good legal representation, and I'll get with him, Senator Bryan, and report back to you. Thank you, sir.
All right. No further questions. Senator Horn for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've known Mr. Nelson for at least 20 years, post fraternity days.
Yeah, adult days, Senator Horn. Yes.
And I move we do advise and consent.
All right. Motions, we do advise and consent on Senate nomination number 70. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. You barely made it.
Thank you.
Next Senate nomination, number 66, Mr. Johnson, Madison, Mississippi for Mississippi Business Finance Corporation. Thank you, Mr. Johnson, for being here. If you would, please introduce yourself to the committee.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. My name is Brian Johnson. Was born in Greenville, Mississippi, native now of Madison, Mississippi. Have lived there for over the last 30 years. I'm an executive vice president with FBB Insurance, which is a subsidiary of Trustmark National Bank. Married to my lovely wife, Christina Johnson, and I also have two children, Nova Marie Johnson and Bronx Kendall Johnson.
Thank you. Committee has peer evaluation in front of you for your view. There's no record of economic interest filed with Mississippi Ethics Commission. Have you filed that yet?
That will be taken care of, if not today, tomorrow.
Okay, please do before we take you up on the floor. We'll need to get confirmation you filed that. Staff located no other derogatory information in your file. Are there any questions of the nominee? Mr. Parker, Senator Parker, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had an opportunity to speak to Senator Kenny Wayne Jones last night for a little bit of time. And this may be a good thing or bad thing, depending on how this vote goes, but he did speak very highly of you. He mentioned your name and he said, anything we could do to, assist you would be appreciated. And I just want to let you know that there are people in the community who are speaking good about you and trying to advance this nomination. So if there's not a nomination to advise and consent from someone else, I'd like to be recognized at the appropriate time, Mr. Chairman.
In light of this new revelation, are there any further questions from the committee? Seeing none, Senator Parker for a motion.
Move we do advise and consent.
Motions, we do advise and consent on Senate nomination number 66. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If you are a nominee that has been considered and you need to file a statement, please do so. We will wait to have confirmation of that before we bring you up on the floor. So please be sure to get that done. Quickly going to House Bill 1648, Senator Johnson, recognize you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll go through this quickly, but happy to answer any questions. 1648 is the Small Business Investment Company Act. This is the one that we passed out of the Senate that gave $45 million over a course of 5 years as a tax credit to that can be used to sell to insurance companies. It's based on the insurance credit, the income tax, I apologize, the insurance tax on premiums. And companies will use this to leverage loans to small businesses to help them as like catalysts to start. Instead of money on the backside, this helps them on the front side. And this is strike all that has the Senate language in it. And that's an explanation of the bill.
Any questions on the strike all?
Move title sufficient, do pass as amended.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Next, House Bill 1668, Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 1668 makes some clarifications to the SALT SALT language we put into law last year. If you remember, the SALT is state and local tax, where There's a cap at federal level on the amount of state and local tax that you can deduct from your tax return. This is a workaround to help pass-through entities pay that tax at the business level instead of the individual level, helping them reduce their taxes by that amount or as a deduction on their federal income taxes. And that's an explanation of the bill.
Thank you. Senator Bryan for a question? Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Move title sufficient, do pass.
Motion is title sufficient, do pass. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Next, House Bill 1733, Senator Johnson.
Yes, House Bill 1733 is the same as our bill that we passed a couple of weeks ago, 3101, that allowed for accelerated depreciation at the state level. This is on items to do with business that have a depreciation of under 20 years and is not related to personal property or is not related to residential property. And this allows you to, instead of depreciating it over the course of the depreciation schedule, you can do it all in the first year. And that's an explanation of this bill. This is also a strike all where we added a reverse repealer. We may have to make an amendment to make it like the Senate bill once we get on the floor. But there's no questions. Motion's title sufficient, do pass as amended.
All right. You've heard the bill. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, motion is title sufficient to pass as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. House Bill 1734, this is a strike all that is essentially the bond bill that we passed that replaced it with cash. We took some of the projects that are ongoing, and there's about $79 million of projects that we have basically taken away the authorization for bonds and supplemented it with cash to pay those off. That is an explanation of the strike all. Are there any questions? Seeing none, for a motion.
Title sufficient, do pass as amended.
All right, motion is title sufficient, do pass as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, the ayes have it. For a motion to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, the ayes have it.